2nd, 2026. An airline that carried 50 million passengers a year just stopped. No warning, no farewell flight. Pilots mid-route got texts telling them to land and walk away. Gate agents showed up for their shifts and found the doors locked. 50,000 passengers were stranded overnight with no refunds, no rebooking, and no explanation. Spirit Airlines was dead. But here's where the story gets insane. Within 72 hours of Spirit's collapse, a random guy on TikTok launched a campaign to buy the entire airline with crowdfunding. And Americans, ordinary, everyday Americans, pledged $337 million to make it happen. The average person put in $907 of their own money, not to invest, not for equity, just to bring back a budget airline. Today we're going to answer the only question that matters. Where did that $337 million actually go? And what does this story tell us about the airline industry that nobody wants to admit? To understand why Americans lost their minds trying to save Spirit, you need to understand what Spirit actually was. Spirit Airlines was founded in 1983 as a trucking company in Michigan. Not a joke. A trucking company that somehow ended up in the airline business by 1990. For the first 20 years, they were nothing special. A mid-sized regional carrier flying routes nobody else wanted. Then, in 2007, Spirit made a decision that would define everything. They went ultra-low cost. And I don't mean cheap tickets. I mean aggressively, unapologetically, almost offensively cheap tickets. Spirit figured out something the other airlines were too proud to admit. Most Americans don't actually want a good flight. They want a cheap flight, and Spirit built an entire business model around that insight. Base fare, as low as $29. Carry-on bag, $79. Water on the flight, $3. Seat selection, $12. Printing your boarding pass at the airport, $25. Every single thing that other airlines included for free, Spirit charged for separately, and people hated them for it. And people kept flying them anyway. At their peak, Spirit was operating 200 aircraft, flying to 90 destinations, and carrying 50 million passengers a year. That's not a small airline, that's a major player. So how did it all fall apart? The cracks started showing in 2020. COVID grounded every airline on Earth. But Spirit was uniquely vulnerable. Spirit's entire business model depended on volume. Razor-thin margins, massive passenger numbers. The moment volume disappeared, Spirit had no cushion. They burned through cash reserves in months. Most airlines took government bailouts and survived. Spirit took the money too, but they made a critical mistake in the recovery. While American, Delta, and United used the post-COVID rebound to raise prices and rebuild margins, Spirit doubled down on the cheap ticket model. They kept prices low, they kept fees high, and they kept expanding routes. It looked like growth. It was actually a slow bleed. By 2023, Spirit was losing money on almost every single flight. Not because people weren't flying, because the cost of operating those flights had exploded. Fuel prices doubled. Pilot salaries doubled. There was a nationwide pilot shortage. Maintenance costs skyrocketed. Aircraft lease payments came due. Spirit was charging 2019 prices to run a 2023 operation. The math didn't work. It was never going to work. Then came the JetBlue deal. In 2022, JetBlue made a $3.8 billion offer to acquire Spirit. On paper, it looked like a rescue. Spirit shareholders approved it. The deal was announced. Then, the Department of Justice stepped in and blocked it on antitrust grounds. The merger was killed in January 2024, and Spirit was left stranded. No merger money, no path to profitability, and a debt load that was becoming impossible to service. November 2024. Spirit Airlines filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. But here's what most people don't know about Chapter 11. It's not the end. It's actually designed to be a restart. Chapter 11 lets a company keep operating while it restructures its debts. Creditors take haircuts. Contracts get renegotiated. The idea is that a restructured, leaner version of the company emerges and survives. Spirit's plan was straightforward. Cut routes, cut staff, renegotiate aircraft leases, come out the other side as a smaller, more sustainable airline. And for a moment, it actually seemed to be working. In March 2025, Spirit emerged from bankruptcy. New debt structure, reduced fleet, revised routes. They announced they were back. They lasted 5 months. It was a complete disaster. By August 2025, Spirit was back in bankruptcy court. The restructured model wasn't generating enough revenue. The brand was damaged beyond repair. Passengers who'd been burned by the first bankruptcy weren't coming back. Investors looked at the numbers and walked away. And on May 2nd, 2026, Spirit Airlines announced it was shutting down completely. Not restructuring, not selling, not merging, shutting down forever. 17,000 employees lost their jobs in a single day. 50,000 passengers were stranded mid-trip. 200 aircraft sat empty on tarmacs across America. The airline was gone. Now here's where this story stops being a regular business collapse and becomes something genuinely fascinating about human psychology. 3 days after Spirit shut down, a 24-year-old content creator named Hunter Peterson posted a TikTok video. The pitch was simple. Spirit Airlines is dead. But what if we just bought it? He launched letsbuyspiritair.com, a crowdfunding campaign. No business plan, no aviation experience, no legal entity set up to actually acquire an airline. Just a TikTok and a dream. Within 48 hours, the campaign had raised $50 million. Within a week, $337 million. The average pledge was $907 per person. Think about that number for a second. $907. That's not a casual donation. That's a car payment. That's a month of groceries. That's a real amount of money. Why? Part of it was the nostalgia factor. Spirit, for all its baggage fees, represented something important. Affordable travel. The ability to fly your grandmother to her grandkid's graduation for $49. The ability to take a spontaneous weekend trip. When Spirit died, a lot of Americans felt like something was being taken from them. But there's a darker truth underneath. Hunter Peterson never had any legal ability to buy Spirit Airlines. Not even close. Purchasing a bankrupt airline isn't like buying a used car on Craigslist. It requires FAA certification, DOT approval, bankruptcy court approval, existing infrastructure, trained staff, maintenance contracts, and hundreds of millions in actual financing. The $337 million in pledges was non-binding. Nobody's credit card was charged. It was the aviation equivalent of a petition. After the liquidation, Spirit's 200 aircraft were returned to their leasing companies. Routes were redistributed to competitors. Some gates went to Allegiant. Some went to Sun Country. The yellow planes got repainted. And within 90 days of Spirit's collapse, every route they flew was being covered by someone else at higher prices. The airline that made budget travel possible was replaced by airlines charging more for the exact same routes. Here's what the Spirit Airlines story actually tells us about the airline industry. Ultra-low-cost carriers are structurally broken in modern America. The American aviation market is consolidating around 4 major carriers: American, Delta, United, and Southwest. And when 4 companies control 80% of a market, prices go one direction: up. The $337 million crowdfunding campaign wasn't just a viral moment. It was a symptom. It was millions of Americans realizing what the death of budget aviation means. Spirit Airlines is gone. The $337 million campaign was never going to work. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. Spirit died because the economics of running an airline in America make it almost impossible to be both affordable and sustainable. If you made it to the end of this video, you already know more about the airline industry than 99% of people. Subscribe, because next week, we're looking at the airline that's quietly positioning itself to replace Spirit. Subscribe. Next video drops soon. You don't want to miss what's coming.